everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Chip Off the Old Clark. With me today is, I think it's my third or fourth cousin, I want to say. From our hats today, you might think this is a basketball podcast, but actually both of us are former hockey players. He was way up above me. Played in the East Coast League, played in the AHL, and then went over and did a stint in Europe. Luckily, he was able to get out before the coronavirus really hit when he was over in Europe to come back, and glad to have my cousin Brandon on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, might as well start from the beginning. Growing up, you played AAA for the Chiefs, did you not?
Yeah, so growing up, I played basically minor hockey in Mount Bridges. Pretty much my whole life. I played 1 year at AAA when I was about 12. I went and played a year with the Chiefs. Went back the next year. I got cut from the team, so played single A with the Mount Bridges Cougars again. And then my draft year, I ended up going and playing in Chatham for the Chatham-Kent Cyclones. I got cut that year from the Chiefs and then ended up going there.
Oh, so same sort of thing I did. Played 1 year with the Chiefs, got cut, went back to Mount Bridges, and then up near my draft year, went up to here in Perth.
Yeah, exact same. Yeah, we had a Chiefs team, or my age group of Chiefs players had kind of been around each other since they were, in Adam, and I was kind of one of those guys that was a fringe guy, and I was really big into roller hockey growing up at that time, and I had a couple of my buddies that were from Chatham that I played roller hockey with, and knew that I was going to get cut from the Chiefs, so I went and got cut, and then went up to Chatham in my draft year and played the year there.
Yeah, and then you ended up going to Guelph.
Yeah, so from there, when I was going through my draft year, I was like 5'7", 140 pounds. And back when hockey was all about fighting and hits and everything else, 5'7", 140, you're not going to scare too many people. So I didn't get drafted. And then that summer, I was playing for the national team roller hockey. We had a tournament here in London, actually, and I got hit at center ice playing roller hockey. I broke my femur.
Mm-hmm.
So had a femur operation. When I had my femur operation, I caught a virus in the hospital that went to my heart. It was called pericarditis. So basically, from the start of breaking my femur to being able to play hockey again, it was about 8 months.
Okay.
So came back from the injury, and kind of over that time, our family, the guys are all pretty big guys, so I kind of knew that I was going to grow. My dad was 6'2", and so when I had my femur operation, the doctor, with my x-rays and things like that, said there's a little bit of a risk here that you could grow with one leg being longer than the other, just because where the break is, and we can clearly see you have room to grow. And everything ended up working out fine, but during that 8 months that I was off, I went from 5'7" to 6'1".
Yep.
I was a bean pole, but with my physio I was having to do on my leg, it's got me into working out and started to gain quite a bit of weight and just fill out a little bit more. Mm-hmm. So it was about January of that next year that I was looking for a team to play for, and I went to the Bulldogs in Mount Bridges, where I'm from, and
we're both from, actually.
Where we're both from, yeah. And the Bulldogs didn't have a room for me. Went to the Rockets in Strathroy, the junior B team. They didn't have room for me. So I ended up getting on with the Lucan Irish junior D team.
Yeah, I remember that because we played against each other.
Yeah. So I went to Lucan, and I had always known to play the game like a small player. I was a great skater, really good hands. But I had always known how to play the game as a small player. Mm-hmm. So when I grew, I it just made me that much better. I had the size to go with the skills and the skating. So I think I had played 10 games in junior D. I think I had 35 points or something, and then that's kind of where my hockey career sort of took off.
Yep.
I went from basically that year of junior D, or that 10 games I played at junior D, I got invited to the Sioux Greyhounds camp in the OHL.
Yep.
So I went up to the Sioux, had a really good camp there, and they wanted me to stay up and play for the Sioux Thunderbirds or something. The Tier 2 team, kind of practice with the OHL team. Wasn't really what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be that far away from home for my first experience. So, also being from Mount Bridges, you're not locked into playing junior B with one center. So I didn't have to play in Strathroy. So I kind of weighed my options. I had probably 10 or 15 teams call. I had a couple teams come down and sit in front of me and my parents and kind of weigh, the options as far as what was the best for me and kind of sell their program on my family. And the one we ended up choosing was in Stratford Culleton. So the reason I chose Stratford was, at this point I'm 17 years old. I had an uncle that played professionally for 10 years and went to Western Michigan University on a scholarship. So I knew at a young age that if I wanted to make anything of it, I needed to get away from home and I needed to learn to grow up a little bit quicker. So when it came to decision making, it was between St. Thomas and Stratford, and I ended up picking Stratford. The reason I chose it was a program that had sent a lot of really good players to college. Chris Pronger, Rob Blake, they all played there. Eddie Olchuk played there. It was just a incredible atmosphere. The arena, they brought me down, kind of showed me a playoff game and stuff like that. It was crazy. So and the other thing was they got everybody into billet houses. So I would be living with a billet family, and I'd go to school there. And so I went there and did grade 12 in Stratford, lived with a billet family, had an incredible year, and I think I won the Midwestern Junior B Rookie of the Year or whatever, for first year players. And from there I had lots of options. I had college options, I had OHL options. I was dead set on going and playing college hockey. I had a few teams calling me. I was working hard on my grades. But then it was actually the night after my prom. I got so about a week before my prom, my dad called me. He's like, "Hey, I got an offer I got a tryout offer here." Like, my dad was my agent. I didn't have an agent. I wasn't good enough to have an agent at that point. So
same as me.
My dad was fielding all the calls and basically said, you got a tryout offer in Guelph, and I mean, I probably had 10 offers from different OHL teams at that point, but I kind of understood how the business of it worked. I mean, there's a lot of free agents that get invited just to kind of fill up roster spots for a training camp. So I was like, "Dad, I'm not going to that. No way." And I was like, "When is it?" And he's like, "Well, it's next Saturday." And I was like, "Well, my prom's on Friday. There's no way I'm going to OHL camp." So he called the coach and told him I'd come, and I had my prom, and he showed up at my girlfriend in Stratford's house at 8 o'clock in the morning. I was not feeling too hot. Picked me up, put me in the truck, and we went down to Guelph and went into that. I went into that skate. My give a shit meter was so low. I didn't give a shit. I didn't care if I did well, if I was terrible, if I was the worst player on the ice. I didn't want to be there. And the first scrimmage, because I was so loose, because I was so relaxed, because I didn't care. I mean, I think my first scrimmage I had 5 goals or something.
Wow.
So we had a scrimmage in the morning, then we did a school visit and stuff, just to kind of show the parents how everything was run there, and then we had a scrimmage in the afternoon, and I had a great scrimmage, and we jumped in the truck after the tryout was over, the day was over, and we're heading back home, and the coach calls my dad, and he's like, "Hey, do you mind turning around? We want to offer your son a spot here in Guelph."
Wow.
So from there it was just kind of that's kind of when I had to start taking things a little bit more seriously. I loved the thing that I always had going for me is I loved hockey. I mean, I spent hours and hours every night in my driveway with my rollerblades on, or when my dad would make a rink in the back. I literally would breathe hockey. It was my life. And so when I got that opportunity, it was, I kind of was weighing what's best for me, and the staff in Guelph was fantastic, and ended up going there and playing for 3 years. My first year was pretty tough. My first year really with any coaching, and I was just like any young kid, fourth line, trying to earn my minutes, and coach was riding me all the time. Just the bag skates and the mental grind of not being the guy, you know, that
Yeah.
was. So I remember I went back my second year and we went to fitness test. I went to the fitness test. My dad took me and dropped me off and called my grandpa and I told him, I was like, I'm done. I'm quitting. Like this is it for me. Like the first year I played in the OHL too, my uncle that played pro was the assistant coach. So I signed on with the team, and then our head coach was Dave Barr, who played pro with my uncle Bill for a couple of years in the old IHL. So after I signed, I think it was about a month later, my uncle signed. So that whole, you know, I had that hanging over my head. You know, I'm only there because my uncle's the coach of the team. And then the second year when I went to go back, my uncle wasn't there. So in the papers and everything, it was like, oh, this guy's uncle's not there. He's going to be one of the cuts. Like, so I'm reading all this as a 18-year-old kid and freaking out about it. And so yeah, it kind of I got to a point where it just got to me. Like it started to bother me a ton. And yeah, so right before fitness test, called my grandpa. I was like, yeah, I'm done. And he basically told me that day, he's like, is this how, you're going to want people to remember you as somebody that quit, or do you want people to remember you as, what you have done in your past? You've worked so hard for everything you've ever gotten. You were told after you broke your femur, you probably would never play athletics at a high level. And, is that how you want people to remember you? And I went out and did the fitness test hard, and that year I finished the season with 29 goals and led the team in scoring. And so from there it was NHL camps, NHL draft. Went to camp in Nashville that year. I ended up having like 4 or 5 interviews prior to the draft. I thought I was going to get picked. Toronto, New York, New Jersey. Had a few different chats with people. At this point, I got an agent too. So midway through that year that I was doing really well, I ended up getting an agent. And funny enough, the agent that I picked his name's Kyle Dubas, who a lot of people are very familiar with now, the GM of the Leafs. So yeah, Doobie was my agent. He was a young guy that had tons of energy, and I loved that about him. He didn't have a lot of clients at that time. Draft went by, didn't get picked again, just kind of, same attitude, threw the work boots on, and got invited to camp in Nashville. Went to Nashville, had a really, really good camp, got invited back to main camp right kind of before their season starts, and they offered me like a minor league contract to stay, but I still had a year that I could go back and play in the OHL, so I ended up turning it down, went back and played in the OHL, more of a leadership role as a captain on the team, and it was a lot of fun. Had a great time, and then from there I signed in the American League with the Houston Aeros. They were called. They're gone now, but the affiliate for the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, I remember that. And then going back to back into the junior D days, the 10 games you played. I remember my coach sitting there, and like I was one of the top, like in the top pair.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there and go up against you guys, and all I get is that kid. And I'm like, yeah, he doesn't score. I'm like, all right. Well, that makes it tough for me because, like, your dad, my dad, related, and just like I had another guy on the team that had played for Lambeth. We'd known each other since we played Chiefs at 10 years old, and it was the same thing with you and I. Just every time I was in the corner, it was, all right, give him that shot with the butt end, give him that slash in the leg. And, even after the game, my grandparents were sitting there going, what are you doing pecking on your little cousin? And it's hockey.
It's one of those games that you can be best buddies when the game's over.
Yep.
But it's that's kind of how we're bred as far as the way that it works. It's just the rules of the game. I mean, when you're playing, we're built competitive. And, it doesn't matter who's on the other end, if it's your brother or your cousin, or you got to, you're playing for your team that day. So.
Yep.
But I remember those days. Those days helped me big time.
Well, having the bigger cousin beating down on you probably helped a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I know, like, even you talking about not getting drafted into the O and, having to go through the steps of that I had a bit of that. Like, the draft year that I had, like, if you look back in the OHL draft that year, the amount of NHLers that went through that year.
Mhm.
Like the Corey Perrys and the Jeff Carters. And, I kind of dabbled with talking with an agent. Dad sat there and, had an interview, and the guy said, he's like, you were born the wrong year.
Yeah.
He's like, if you were a year older or a year younger, you'd probably be in the top 2 rounds. He's like, you're 6'4", almost 200 pounds at 16 years old.
Yeah.
You're a defenseman. You can move. You can rush the puck. He's like, but look at the list.
Yeah.
And we played against all of them, like Mark
Yeah.
Mancari and all those. It was just every night, game in, game out. Like, there was no off nights back in AAA that year.
No, those, and I know all those guys really well. Like, I've, skated with those guys,
Mhm.
and trained with those guys the last while, and yeah, it's, when you look at the guys now that are 35 years old that are still playing, I mean, they're not, they're big boys.
And they're not washed up either.
No, they're good. These guys they're good players.
Oh, yeah.
And they're built tough, man. Like those guys are like tough guys. Like even Corey Perry. I mean,
Yep.
He's one of those guys that everybody hates to play against, but you'd love to have him on your team.
Yep.
And he can chuck them pretty good too. He's a pretty tough kid. So
yeah, I remember like AAA. He was kind of like you were saying when you were that age, like just short, skinny.
Mhm.
Like he was never really the problem. But going against Mark Mancari.
Yeah, he
was the same height same height as me, same weight as me, and he was a forward, and he just like you, like had the hands, had the speed, everything else, and then all of a sudden you go to move him, and it's like trying to move a truck.
Yeah, and he can shoot the puck like he's got one of the best shots I've
Mhm.
seen. So, but no, and then so going back as far as the Houston thing, I was my first year in Houston. I was. The thing that people don't know, I guess, about hockey is, there's different levels as far as politics at each level. And,
Mm-hmm.
My first year in the American League, I was playing for a coach by the name of Kevin Constantine, and he was in the NHL for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Just the old style coach, like in your face, screaming all the time, and
Almost the Tortorella style.
oh yeah, he was hard. He was really hard, but. I liked him, but that year I got sent between Houston and Florida like 7 or 8 times.
Mm-hmm.
I was on planes all the time. Like I'd get called up to Houston for 2 games to play with the Fighters, and then I'd get sent back to the coast and have to play on the first line and power play and everything for a weekend. And then I go back to Houston for 3 weeks, then
Mm-hmm.
back for 1 game. Like it was so tiring. I was just I was a piece of meat that year, and went back for my second year, and my year when I was in the coast, I was doing well. I was playing well. I was putting up points. I was in the East Coast All-Star game.
Mm-hmm.
And, so when I went back to Houston for my second year, I trained really hard that summer. Probably the hardest I'd ever trained, and I didn't want to be that piece of meat anymore.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that I did enough to get to Minnesota and do well there. But then when I got down to Houston, also stick. That was the biggest thing for me. I just wanted to stick in one place, and it just happened that year that I stuck in Houston, we were really good. We had a coach by the name of Mike Yeo, that's assistant coach right now with Philadelphia.
Yep, he was the coach in Minnesota for a while,
He was
wasn't
the head coach in Minnesota, and then he was the head coach in St. Louis,
Yep.
and then now he's the assistant. And Yosi was, he was a hard-working player, tough player, but that's the way he liked his games to be, like low-scoring, hard
Mhm.
defense. And but the biggest thing for me that year was I was not on an NHL contract. I was on an American League contract, and there were no other forwards that were on American League contracts. So as far as, the political side and the numbers side,
Mhm.
I was kind of the odd man out. And it didn't matter how good I was playing or bad I was playing. In the American League, it's a lot of those decisions are made from the NHL executives, the GMs, and things like that. I mean, the American League coaches obviously can tweak things the way that they want, but everything pretty much has to center around what the NHL team is doing. So if a player gets called up, it's a seamless transition, really easy. But so we ended up making it to the Calder Cup Finals that year. We played 106 games total, and I was healthy scratch for 53 of them, right in the middle. So that year was super tough. Like when I played, I wasn't playing much. I just tried to get the most out of my minutes and be a good teammate, and I was trying to have a good attitude every day. But it's tough, man. It's a grind. Like going to the rink every day and then being told you're not going to play. I mean, that's not why you play the game.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times where I wouldn't go on road trips, and that's what hockey's about. Like the road trips are where you build those relationships, and that's where you get the life experience from. And so that year, I just had the life sucked out of me as far as hockey was concerned. I had my wife now was with me that year living in Houston, and that year ended, and I think the day after the season ended, my dad flew down. We drove back with my truck from Texas, filled a U-Haul, and dragged it behind the truck there. But when I left Houston, I was done. I was done hockey. I told my wife, I was like, listen, I'm gonna call up a couple schools this summer and head out to out east and play university hockey and get my degree, and that's it. Like I've just had enough.
Yeah.
It's sick of bag skates. I'm sick of healthy scratches. I'm sick of. But the one thing that I always loved in hockey in general was I loved European hockey. I grew up every year, like there was World Juniors at Christmas, and then there was the Spengler Cup.
Yep.
And I watched the Spengler Cup every year. Like as much as I would watch the World Juniors, I was glued to the Spengler Cup. I thought that that tournament was everything. It was so cool. And I remember growing up, like all my passwords for like MSN Messenger and Facebook and everything when I was in high school was always HC Davos.
Okay,
it was always my password because I just loved the Spengler Cup. So it was actually my wife that just, one day when I'm just kind of, I'm just losing it about hockey, just kind of in a dark place, my wife was like, well, why don't we just go over and try a year in Europe? Like, let's just go try it. Talk to your agent, talk to Kyle, and see if you can get in touch with somebody and just, try a year over there. If it doesn't work out, then, screw it. Like, we'll come back and we'll, start our life. But more than anything, let's just go snag a good life experience and learn as much as we can and, just see how it goes.
Yeah.
And ended up signing that year with a team in Norway.
Okay.
So my first year in Norway was, I came from the second best team in the American League to this little tiny city in Norway, and so I think right away, like I had a really tough time with it because my expectations were just so high. I went from playing on a team with like NHLers. Patrick O'Sullivan was with me in the American League, and just some really great players. I had Jose Theodore with me for a bit when I was in Houston, and then I went down to this little city in Norway, and we're practicing at like 4:00 in the afternoon because guys like were working during the day.
Oh wow!
Coming to practice at night. So how that league worked was like we had 3 import players and they would make pretty good money, but then all the other guys on the team, the Norwegians, actually had jobs. So so got there, started to kind of figure out the game a little bit. It's a lot different game, a lot more skating, a lot more skill, which was up my alley. And so we loved Norway. It was a beautiful country, really, really expensive, like ridiculous.
Oh, really?
Oh, so expensive. But I just kind of found the love for the game again. I started to enjoy it again. Norway was a tough country to live in because of the sunlight in the winter.
Okay.
You only get like 3-4 hours of daylight in the winter time, so that part was pretty tough. But we had a good group of people with us. There wasn't a whole lot you could do in the little town that we were in, but we made the most of it. And I had a good year there. And then the next summer, I got a call from my agent, and he's like, "Hey, like, what are you thinking for next year?" And I'd always kind of told him I wanted to just do 1 year, and that was it. And so when he called me, I was like, "Well, I don't have a job at home right now. Just get my name out there, see if anything comes back." And I think it was like the start of July. He called me with an offer to go play in Zagreb, Croatia.
Okay.
They were in the Austrian league. But basically he told me, he's like, "Listen, this team that you're going to go play for, like their payments are late all the time. Like they're kind of shady. Like they pay cash. Like it's like all the horror stories you hear.
Yeah.
That's everything about this team. So he's like, I don't know if you're going to go over and get paid every month. I don't know if you're going to go over and get paid once every 6 months. He's like, but you're going to have, 15 North Americans that you're going to play with. You're going to have a great coach. And he's like, if you do well there, it's going to open up a lot of doors for you because it's a good league. So, yeah, basically, took that chance, and with the help of, my wife's parents, that summer had to give us quite a bit of money. My parents let us stay at their place in Delaware there for free for that summer, so we didn't have any expenses as far as that went, but kind of took our chances on it and ended up going to Croatia and playing in the Austrian League. So that was probably one of my most fun years that I played. Croatia's a undercover, country. Zagreb's a beautiful city. Dirt cheap. Everything there's dirt cheap. But the most important thing was we had so many imports on our team because at that time they were giving guys passports that had Croatian roots. So they would go and look on, elite prospects, and anybody that had the last name Itch, like Perkovic or Sertic or something like that, they would just give these guys citizenship. So we ended up having like 15 or 18 North American guys, North American coaching staff, and we had like an East Coast or an AHL team in this Austrian league. So we ended up doing really well, had a lot of fun that year. And again, I had, over a point a game. I think I was like third or fourth in the league in scoring that year. And, so from there, it just opened up a ton of different options for me. So.
Yeah, and did they end up paying you kind of regularly, or was it the horror story you were talking about?
No, I can touch a little bit on that. Yeah, we had some shady payments. Like I got paid a few times in the grocery store and, paid a few times in parking lots in different parts of the city, and it was about as shady as
almost mob like, right?
I think it was a lot of mob with my team, but I ended up getting all my money. The big thing for me that I had over a lot of guys was I was playing really well. I didn't really let the not getting any money affect the way that I was playing, whereas a lot of guys, in the same breath, I was 23 years old. I had no bills at home. I had no kids.
Yeah.
We had some guys in our team that had homes back in North America. They had kids. Like, they needed their money all the time because they had mortgages to pay. I didn't have that stuff at home. So for me, like, it was a little bit easier for me to, play without getting money, and
didn't have those extra distractions from at home, right?
Exactly. And I remember one time, like, I'd started really well. My coach called me in, and he's just like, his name was Marty Raymond. He's from Montreal, but just a fantastic person. And he just said to me, he's like, you know what, Brandon? He's like, you can look at this situation, one of two ways. He's like, you can sit here and mope and, have a bad attitude and just kind of get through the year and maybe get your money. Or he's like, you can play as well as you possibly can. We have a good team. You're a great teammate. People come out and watch you. And then next year you go somewhere else that you're going to get paid regularly. You're going to get paid on time. You're going to make more money. Like, have that attitude.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me the whole year. Like, it really did. And I ended up, as I said, that team that I was playing for that year was in the Austrian League, but the next year they wanted to go to the KHL.
Okay.
So I kind of had that bargaining power as far as they wanted me to come back and play in the KHL. But I basically said, I'm not talking to you guys about next year until you give me all my money from the current season.
Yeah.
So I kind of played them a little bit, which I had to do to get all my money out. But I knew at that point, like, I was done there anyways. Like, if they couldn't pay me my Austrian League salary, how are they going to pay me when it's 4 times more in the KHL?
Yeah, exactly.
So it wasn't the city, it wasn't the people of Croatia. It was just the people running the organization were so unorganized. They didn't want to be back there. And I'd already signed when I was kind of telling them about all this shit with giving me my money. I'd already signed in Switzerland at that point.
Oh, okay.
So I ended up getting my money. Me and my wife, as I said, I was 24, 25 at this time, and we had talked about starting a family and buying a house, and so I needed something that was going to be consistent.
Yeah.
So ended up choosing a place in Switzerland. Basel was the city. Swiss league is one of the best leagues to go to as far as the security aspect, or I shouldn't say as far as the security aspect, as far as like the payments and professionalism, as far
stability,
as
right?
The stability, and you never had a problem getting your paychecks. We get paid in Europe playing hockey. You get paid every month. You get one paycheck a month. So every time you're supposed to get a paycheck, you got your paycheck, and that's how my first couple years it wasn't quite like that, and when I went to Basel, it was great that way. So. My wife was pregnant. We ended up having our oldest daughter. She's born in Switzerland. She's born in Basel. So, that was a great year. Had an awesome experience. I took one of my buddies with me from the year before in Zagreb. We went together to Switzerland and played together. So, the team that we played for in Basel, they hadn't made the playoffs in like 6 or 7 years, and they didn't have the greatest import. It's only 2 imports in the Swiss B League, it was called. So. Their imports hadn't really done well. So me and my buddy Kyle Greentree, we went there together and we lit it up the whole year. Like we did great. We finished the season in like 5th place, which was like unheard of for that team. And they literally, I thought we were going to get the keys to the city. We were just on top of the world when that all happened. And we both had 2-year deals. And that summer when we were getting ready to go back, they were kind of lenient about booking our flights to go back. So I kind of started to get like a little bit of a bad feeling about it. And it was probably about 2 weeks before we were supposed to leave that my agent called me. It was like 3 a.m. He called me. He's like, "Oh, your team just went bankrupt."
Wow.
So, and I had, like I said, I had a house at that point. I had my wife and my brand new baby at that point. So we were kind of freaking out, but because I'd done well for a couple of years at that point, I had a couple different teams call me, and within like 3 days, I had an offer to go to the team that I signed with in Germany for my first year. Was called ERC Ingolstadt. So I went to Ingolstadt and started the German experience, which we'll get into here.
Yeah. For anybody that doesn't know, like there's the old NHL games and everything else. They had a couple that actually, had the European leagues and everything else in them. And so for anybody that does know, like obviously it's a big enough league that, NHL and EA Sports have actually kind of put that out in the game, right?
Yep. No, I've it's been pretty cool. Like I've been in NHL games now since, for about 8 to 10 years, I'd say. So, and then into my ERC Ingolstadt days. So I signed in Ingolstadt, left about 2 weeks later. My connection with Ingolstadt was the head coach. His name was Larry Harris. He had been coaching in Switzerland for 20 years prior to moving to Germany. So he knew about me, knew my game really well, but his kind of touch to the team that he brought was myself, a winger named Peter Tadacek, and then a right winger named Ryan McMurtry. And we were all guys that came to Germany playing the year previously in Switzerland. So the team that we went to was kind of a Cinderella story team. They finished like 10th place, went into like a play-in round the year prior, ended up winning the championship, out of nowhere. So knew right away going in that we were going to have a good team, but Larry had to come in, basically our coach, and Larry Hurst had to replace 12 players from a championship team because guys had left for more money or better leagues. So Larry's a good old Elmira boy, so put his work boots on and brought a good team together, and that was my best year of European hockey. I think I finished the league like in 3rd or something in scoring. I was the runner-up for the MVP of the league. And from there, that year when I think it was in November, I got to play for Canada for the first time. There's the Spengler Cup, which is in Switzerland, but then there's what we call the Deutschland Cup, which is in Germany.
Yep.
So I played in the Deutschland Cup for Team Canada, so that was really, really rewarding. Something I never thought was going to happen. Going from being from Mount Bridges and playing junior D hockey to playing for Canada. And then that year just finished. We did awesome. We got to the finals, Game 6. We lost to a team called Adler Mannheim, which is they played. Their coach at that time was Jeff Ward. He coaches the Flames right now.
Yep.
They just had a great team. A lot of NHLers on the team. Really deep team. I think they lost like 7 games the whole year.
Oh, wow.
Ended up beating us in 6 games. But, yeah, from there it was basically after that game, we kind of had our year-end party and everything. And I had re-signed with Ingolstadt for 2 years. I think it was in October. Like early on in the year, I'd re-signed to go back for 2 years. It was a super professional organization, never an issue with payments or vehicles or anything else. So they came to me at the end of the year when we were done and my season was over, I was getting options to go to the KHL. I was getting options to go to Sweden and Switzerland again, and talking to my agent about possibly coming back to North America and trying the American League and the NHL again. But Ingolstadt came to me and made me an offer to stay there for 5 years. It was a 5-year contract. The DEL had never given an import player a 5-year contract before,
wow.
So that was the first one ever given out. And like I said, I absolutely loved it there. So we took the contract. We ended up signing it to stay in Ingolstadt. And the one worry that I had about the whole thing was I basically told the GM at the time that I'll sign this contract, but I wanted an out clause in it saying that if, I came from, the lowest of leagues in Europe where I wasn't making much money. And I said to him, I want an out clause in here that if I get an option to go play in the KHL for $2 million that I can leave.
Almost like a NBA opt-out.
Yeah.
Player option.
So the guy basically said, well, listen, if a player that's playing here has that option, we're not going to take it away from him. Like, we're not going to hold somebody back. We're not going to write it on the paper. We're not going to hold anybody back. So I was like, yeah, okay, like I'll believe that and take his word for it. And well, I went back the next year, had a really good year again, and then after that year, I got an offer to go play for probably a top 3 KHL team, Akbars Kazan. They were called. It was a 2-year offer to go there, so I went back to the same GM and I was like, hey, I got this option. It involves a buyout for you guys, so like you're gonna get some money. Yep. I was at a point where I was willing to sign an agreement basically where I would go there for 2 years, then I would come back and finish out my contract, kind of just put the contract on pause and come back and fulfill it. And they just asked for like an astronomical amount of money. Like it was so basically, the GM in Ingolstadt, butchered it. He didn't want to take that offer, and it didn't turn out very well for me. It ended up affecting me and hurting my name a little bit. So I really tried to. I ended up playing the next year. We brought in a new coach, new GM, and from there on out, I just we didn't see eye to eye on certain things. But more than anything, by the time my 3rd year rolled around, I wasn't playing very well. I mean, at the end of the day, you can say blame anybody that I want, but I wasn't playing very well. I'd let all this kind of outside noise affect me, and I wasn't playing well, and we ended up agreeing on my contract cancellation in, I guess it would have been December. Okay. And I got bought out of my contract. That's how I should say, because a different team from a different league came in and basically said they would take my contract on. So they paid my German team, and then I went to HC Davos, which was my dream team. Yep. So I went to Davos, and I got to play in my first Spengler Cup, which was so cool. And Davos is literally everything you see it on TV. It's the most beautiful place I've ever been. You're in the mountains, and we lived on a ski hill, like right on the side of a ski hill. Like I think the first day we got there, over the course of like the first week, I think it snowed like 9 feet or something. Oh wow! Like it was crazy. And we were in lower part, Bavaria, Germany, the lower part of Germany, the south, and we would get maybe 1 or 2 days of snow. Like it's in the southern part of Germany, unless you're near like a mountain town, in Ingolstadt and Nuremberg, where I was the last 2 years, it's a lot like Vancouver. You just get a lot of rain. It's gray, and so yeah, when we were in Davos, it was awesome. You got to kind of feel a little bit like home, where you get a lot of snow, and so got our. We actually had our second daughter. We had the year prior in Germany. She's born in Germany. Our youngest daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So got both the kids there. My wife. We got our oldest daughter in some ski lessons and things like that. So. It was an awesome experience. But then, right kind of before playoffs, the coach that I had in Davos was the most historic coach, maybe for sure in Swiss hockey history, but one of maybe the most historic coaches in the history of hockey.
Mm-hmm.
He was there for 25 years. He won, tons of championships, and his name was Arno Del Curto.
Okay.
And Arno was about as straight a shooter as you're going to find.
Yep.
And the year that I was in Davos, we also had Olympic break. So basically, every team across Europe, because the Olympics were going on, you got to go away on a trip for 2 weeks. You get 2 weeks off right in the middle of the season, which was completely unheard of. So I was actually on a plane with my wife and my kids. We were going over to Dubai.
Okay.
And I get a call from Arno, and he has, he's got his accent, but he basically just said, he's like, you know what, Brandon, like, we had 6 imports on our team at that point. You can only play 4. We had a couple guys that had injuries, but then they had come back, and he just said to me, he's like, you know what, Brandon, he's like, we're at a point right now where I don't think we're going to win very many games in the playoffs, and we need to make sure that our young guys are getting some experience, so I don't think you're going to get to play for the rest of the season. So he's like, you can basically stay here and he's like, collect your paychecks and practice, and or if you want, you can see if you can go somewhere else and gain some experience for the playoffs somewhere else, and I had already signed at that point to go back to Germany for the next season. So I was at a point where I just wanted to play games. I didn't want to sit. I just wanted to play games. So started kind of contacting a few of my buddies, and ended up contacting a coach that I had with Team Canada. I got to play for Team Canada the year prior. I forgot about that again. I got to do it for I was involved in like the Olympic process.
Okay.
So I played a Deutschland Cup again, my second one, and then I also went to Russia for the Olympic tryouts. But then I contacted one of the assistant coaches. His name's Sergio Ban, and Serge was coaching in Vienna at the time, and I had a couple of buddies that were on the team too.
Yep.
They were a top team and in the Austrian league, and called them, and I said, do you guys need a player for the playoffs or the stretch here? And they did. So I went to Vienna and had an awesome experience there, and got some good coaching, and got to play some important games for the playoffs. And then when that all finished, we were back in Germany in Nuremberg the next year. So.
Oh, okay. Now, when it comes to going through all the different leagues, was there really a big difference between the Austrian league and the German league, like skill wise, style of play, stuff like that?
Yeah, I would say the biggest difference. Well, there's quite a few differences. I mean, the Austrian league is definitely a little bit. It's a smaller league. Like the import players, you get about the same amount of import players. I think it's around 9 or 10. I know the German league's 9. You can dress 9. I think the Austrian league's probably around the same.
Okay.
The German league is a little bit. The rinks are a lot bigger. There's some rinks in the German league that are like NHL buildings, like 18,500.
Oh, wow.
There's a couple that are like 14,000, 15,000. So I think the German league, like as a whole in the league, they make more money. So in return, the players on the better teams, typically they make more money than in the Austrian league, for example. So you get a little bit higher end import players. As far as I would say the Germans and the Austrians are a little bit better than the Austrian players, but comparable leagues, I would say. It's not if you take the top team in the Austrian league, they could compete 100% in the German league. But the German league, I would say, from the 14th place team to the first place team, like every time they play, it's going to be competitive.
Mm-hmm.
If you take the top team in the Austrian league and play against the bottom team in the Austrian league, it might be 10-1.
Oh, okay.
So there's a big difference as far as the teams in the Austrian league, whereas the German league as a whole is a little bit more level ground.
Oh, okay. And then when it comes to like the facilities and stuff, like is it comparable to like the East Coast League or the AHL?
Yeah. So in Germany, at least, I mean, you have like Eisbären Berlin is one of the most historic teams in Germany. They're owned by the same ownership group that owns the LA Kings.
Okay.
So they have an NHL arena. It's called the Mercedes-Benz Arena. It's literally incredible. It's a beautiful facility. Adler Mannheim, the team that I played my first year, beat us in the finals. They're owned by the same ownership group that owns the San Jose Sharks. So SAP. So their building is, again, it's NHL caliber. Cologne Sharks on the west side of Germany, they're 18,500 fans in there. So that is the building where the World Championships were a couple years ago.
Yep.
And like the Cologne last year, they played the Edmonton Oilers, I think it was. Like every year when they do those European, games where an NHL team will go over and play a European team. I'm pretty sure last year or the year before, Draisaitl with the Oilers went over and played because he's from Cologne, so he got to play there. There's a game, I think, and maybe last year or the year before too, where Berlin played, I think, Chicago or something. So, but then you have ownership like Red Bull has Munich. Red Bull Munich is so. I mean, the teams that, or the ownership of some of these teams, like it's endless amounts of money, right? And when I was in Ingolstadt, for example, where our main sponsor was Audi.
Okay.
So, again, just a really good, back team. And then when I was in Nuremberg the last 2 years, we had our ownership, our owner was a guy by the name of Thomas Sabo. So that was, Thomas Sabo was like really, really a big jeweler. He's like a Pandora or like one of those, but it's, heavy over in Europe. They don't have them as much here in North America, but, so yeah, but we had, the year before I got there, they had always great teams full of NHLers. Like they had Danny Heatley was there, Brandon Pruss was there, Rob Schremp, Danny Savrett, Dave Steckel, Steven Reinprecht, Curtis Foster. Like they every year would get like good NHL players. One of my best buddies that I played with the last 2 years, name's Tom Gilbert. He played for Montreal and Edmonton and LA. Like he's still playing there. So Thomas Sabo loved that team. So he would spend a ton of money bringing in high end guys. But yeah, so my last 2 years here we're based in Nuremberg, and I got to go play in the Spengler Cup a second time. My first year in Nuremberg, we took our German team there to the Spengler Cup, and that was a pretty cool experience. And then this past year, again, just we had a coach that I had played for in Germany before came in and was our coach, so I knew I loved having him. His name was Kurt Kleinendorst. He coached in North America for a long time, and so I kind of knew what I was getting into with him. He's a New Jersey Devils guy, so super hard on his systems, but really, really fair and a player's coach. And we had an awesome year, and then the coronavirus hit, and it all came to an end pretty quick.
And like, I'm glad to have you on, because back when I was going through the whole process that you had went through and actually succeeded in, you got drafted, went to camp, had the option to go play for the affiliate or come back home. I came back home, made a stupid mistake, but then I had people saying, well, what about England? What about Italy? Like, on my mom's side, it's Italian based, so I had that option. The lineage was there, same as you were saying with the Croatian players that give you a passport. And I just went, like, if it's not the Davos, if it's not the DEL, if it's not, like, the K wasn't around then, but the Russian Super League, if it wasn't one of those, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
But to have you on and, kind of explain to some of these people that they don't get the chance to play in the NHL, they don't get a chance to stick on that AHL team or get drafted, there's still a life after the NHL.
Yeah.
Like, there's only 31 teams.
Yeah.
There's only 30 guys on a roster. And
Yeah.
do the math. It's not that much.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of guys that they just get frustrated and they go, well, I'm going to go to the factory life. I'm going to go to construction. Whereas, having you on, it shows that other side of it where if you're willing to continue the love of the game, if you're willing to, put in the time and, do that traveling, not only is it essentially a vacation every year in a different country potentially, but you also get to play the game you love.
Yeah, no, you hit it spot on. I mean, you have to have the right attitude about it. Like, it's, I've seen, I've had a great career over there. I've done really well over there. I've, been really fortunate to, everything that I have in my life is because of hockey. It really is. There's no other way to put it. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, it took so much hard work, and it took, I had a freaking million people in my life tell me that I wasn't good enough or I wasn't going to make it. And those are the people that literally got me to where I was, because that drove me every single day. Like, I'm not somebody that, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it as hard as I can 12 times over to prove you wrong. Like, that's just my attitude. That's the way that I was raised. I mean, I come from a freaking blue collar family where my parents, worked so freaking hard to get everything that, we have as far as me and my brother, to play our sports, to, I wasn't the kid that had, brand new everything every year. Like, I don't think I think I had one brand new pair of skates my whole life. Like, my dad would take me to Herm Sports and I'd grab, a used set of jets every single year. And that's just how it was. Like, my parents just, so that just kind of was instilled in me at a young age. And but I've talked to so many people about going over to Europe, and there's a lot of people that are really hesitant. But the biggest thing about going over to any new setting, whether you're playing hockey or anything else, is you can't compare those experiences to home. Like, you can't. The reason why I had such a tough time in Norway when I first moved there was, I'd go into the grocery store and I'm looking for things that I'm used to having at home. Yeah. Well, they don't exist in those countries. Like, you can't go and find something simple like craft dinner. They don't have that stuff there. You make cheese and you boil noodles, and like, it's healthier.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But the fact of the matter is, you can't compare. You can't compare the driving. You can't compare the lifestyle. You can't compare the way that you dine or anything like that. Like, it's so much different. And when you just accept those experiences and kind of cherish them, and you're really, really, really able to learn a lot, and it opens your eyes up to, we're so fortunate. I mean, it came to a point for me, like, I've had options to go back even now, like with COVID going on, I've had options to go back and play, but I mean, my kids, I have a daughter that's in grade 1 and one that's in kindergarten, and we've moved so many times in their lives, in their young lives. They've been in different schools in different cities in different countries, and it's so rewarding for me to kind of sit back now and give them, the life that they deserve. They're able to go to school and make friends, and I feel like my kids and my wife have always, gone into experiences kind of with one foot in, one foot out. They don't want to get too attached to somebody because they we might move, or we might get traded, or might get bought out, or whatever. And so to give them those experiences, to let my kids, do figure skating and play hockey and gymnastics and dance, and it's been awesome. And my wife too, like my wife was a photographer, and my wife's been my number one supporter since I started playing professionally. And, no matter what we needed to do, if she had to pack our entire life in a suitcase and, in 2 days, it was done. Where are we going? And she's just been such a calming influence for me, in my career and in my life. But she, as I said, was a photographer, and she was the same. She couldn't fully, dig her teeth into anything because, we were always moving. And photography's been great for her because she's been able to do it kind of wherever we are. But again, she can't really spread her wings because, we're not full-time in Germany. We're not full-time, in Canada. So since everything kind of opened up with the restrictions in June where, she could go back to work, I mean, she's just taken off as far as her career. And, it's been so good to see and just how happy it makes her, but just how she's so creative and she's so freaking good at what she does. And, it's been really, really nice for me to sit back and watch all that. And I haven't been able to my whole life. I mean, I'm practicing from 8 a.m. till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Then I come home. I might be catching a bus to go up and be, in a hotel for a weekend.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't been able to watch my wife, do what she loves. I haven't been able to watch my kids grow up and do what they love and be around their friends. So
Yeah.
this whole experience, what I've been able to do now has just been nice for me. So I decided that it'd be best for my wife and for my kids if we just if we didn't go back. So
yeah. So in other words, the love and support that they gave you to see you going to the gym, see you getting on a bus and being gone for a week and on and on and on. Now it's full circle and you get to sit there and support them where they get to do what they want and get those roots down.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Then with that, with you saying, excuse me, they, you're setting down roots and allowing them to grow and flourish in one area. Have you ever thought about getting into the coaching realm of things, or?
Yeah, so that's for me. I mean, I've had so many different things kind of run through my mind over the years as far as what I'd like to do, and one thing that I've absolutely loved in playing hockey and building relationships has been anytime that I've got to do anything as far as community work with police officers or anything like that. I've been super, super interested in like that side of life after hockey. So I'd say for probably the last like 3 or 4 years, I've gone really hard into finding out the best ways about getting into policing and things like that. And so no, that's what I'm really hard into that right now. I'm kind of going through the process. I want to be a police officer, so I'm COVID's definitely not helping that cause with everything going so slow. But I'm so that's where my interest is now. But on top of that, I'm also I started up a business in, I think it was about September, BB Hockey. So BB Hockey training. Basically it's just an outlet for some kids in Strathroy and Mount Bridges area. I mean, I go anywhere, but my groups right now are typically from around this area. We ran all of my skates in Strathroy. So I'm just doing some development stuff, and it's been awesome. I've loved every second of it. One thing that I always know, regardless of what I end up doing, if I get a job in policing or if I'm doing construction, I mean, I'm always going to be involved in hockey one way or another.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that I know in my life that I can, stop doing and then pick up tomorrow and be right where I left off. Like I don't. I'm such a nerd for hockey. Like I know everything about it. I'm attached to the TV when it's on, and I haven't really missed the playing part of it because I've been so involved in my kids' lives and my wife's business and things like that. But this whole training thing that I've been doing with kids has been awesome. Like I've loved it. I've learned so much about different age groups and what groups I love working with, what groups are maybe a little bit more challenging. What groups maybe I need more help on the ice with me. There's a lot of hurdles as far as what's going on with COVID and what I'm allowed in the rinks and things like that. But no, overall, I think I've been doing it now for about 3 months, and I've got I have 6 skates that I do a week with different groups.
Oh wow!
So I'm working with kids from basically the ages of 7 up to about 15, and I've got one group in there that's a girls group as well. So I'm working with boys and with girls. So it's been awesome. I mean, I've loved it. The kids are teaching me probably as much as I'm teaching them, just as far as, when you play hockey for so long, you kind of get, like over the course of my career, I helped out a million times with youth hockey and going out and appearing and just, doing what I could to assist where I could, but you don't really see kind of how good kids are at a young age now. Like there's so much development, there's so much more ice than when we were kids.
Yeah, for sure.
And some of these kids coming up, man, they're good players. And even what I've been really impressed with is the girls groups. Like this group of girls that I have, they're in grade 7, but really, really talented group of girls. They are my best listening group by a long shot. They're so motivated, and it's been awesome. And the reason why I wanted to get into girls, working with the girls, is I have 2 girls. I'm a girl dad, and I have a figure skater who's everything, princesses and Barbies. And then I have my youngest who's like hockey, Spider-Man, like wants to, knock her sister out every 2 seconds during the day. So she's so obsessed with hockey that I really wanted to get involved with the girls side of it and kind of meet some people in the Blue Water organization. But no, it's all my groups. I'm working with some great kids. I'm working with great families. And it's been really nice. It's been really good.
Yeah, that's the thing I've been fighting with since my fiance and I have met is, she's got a son. I remember being that age and going, well, I want to play hockey. Well, he wasn't afforded that opportunity at a young age. It was never really kind of even shown to him. And, start sitting down watching hockey. Well, I want to play. And it's like, because I know if I put those skates on and put that stick in my hand, that, like you said, it's just going to click.
Yeah.
And it's the competitive nature is going to come back, the wanting to coach, the on, and that's why I've started this, to at least attempt to have that opportunity for him. Like we took him out to Kamoka, and we had him out skating, and there's an age difference from the time you and I learned to skate to the time he did, but it was the same thing. It was he didn't want to. It was a great idea on paper, and then you put the skates on him, you put the helmet on him, you get him out on the ice, and he goes, nope, not happening. I don't want to move. I'm just going to hold on to the boards. And, you got to push him, and you got to explain to him, it's just ice. It's no different than you riding your bike and falling off. Instead of it being the asphalt, it's ice.
Exactly.
It hurts exactly the same. And, we went out 3 times by the end of last skating season. And by the 3rd time, like, Mandy's got videos of, him going all the way around the ice, not touching the boards. Him learning to stop is still a process. But, but and he said, he's like, well, I want to play hockey. And go, buddy, you talk to somebody that went through it. Like, if you want to do this, I know you're competitive. You don't want to lose. There's going to be a lot of times where you're not going to be the best skater. You're not going to be the most skilled, and you're going to have to learn, and you're going to have to put that time in. And that's actually when it clicked in my head that I should have somebody like you on, because I can tell him.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's him.
Yeah.
Whereas you've actually been like leaps and bounds further than I've ever been, and been paid to play. Like, I played maybe not as many games as you, but whether it's playing for 2 teams at 14 or playing for 2 teams at 15 and then 16, playing junior D and AAA, and then getting into D, and then on and on and on and on. But you've been paid. For him to listen to this, and for other kids looking to get into it growing up, or even the kids that you're coaching with your program, is you don't have that time in that hour session to talk about all the stuff outside that you've had to go through and you've had to deal with, and the trials and the tribulations and the bullshit and the politics.
Absolutely.
Where you're trying to teach them the skills to get them to where you got to. Yeah. But it's those almost like a mentorship program.
Yeah, no, and that's actually a really good thing that you added there, because especially I don't do it as much as my younger groups, because my younger groups are just at a point. I mean, I'm a dad too, right? I know how kids' minds work now, and it's not like when we were kids.
No.
Like there's iPads and iPods and video games and this game and that game and everything's
and
electronic.
YouTube and
exactly. And when we were kids, it was like, get your ass outside and go play in the snow, or go shoot pucks in the driveway, or go chase each other around in the backyard. Like, that's just how it was.
If it's not raining and you're in the house, you're cleaning with mom.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I mean, when we were kids, you didn't have the worries about kids getting scooped up off the
Yep.
road in strangers' cars and things like that. Like, I'm just like you, like grew up in Mount Bridges where it was such a small town. Like, you knew everybody in town. You could
Yep.
go from one end to the other town on your bike. Like, the sun came up, I'd get on my bike and buzz down to my best buddy James Dossett's house and knock on the door at 7 a.m. and let's play some road hockey.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
go.
Yep.
And, I'd show up back home at dark, for dinner. And that was how I lived my whole childhood. But now it's different. And that's been one of the toughest things for me, I think, is just learning. Because, as I said, my oldest daughter's 6, so I don't know quite how the minds of like a 12 or 13-year-old work. Yeah. And that has taken a little bit of adjustment for me, but I have a great grasp on it now.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that with my older groups especially that I provide is a little bit of a mentorship.
Yep.
Like, I'll do my sessions. Like, I have a group of 13-year-old boys that are playing for the Chiefs.
Okay.
And so that's minor bantam. So they got 2 years till their draft year. So typically what I do with them is, because they're at the highest level they can be for their age, and they're kind of getting into that political aspect of AAA hockey, like, prospects teams and agents calling and this and that and money grab after money grab. And it's like, I have parents calling me and asking me, like, what's good, what's bad, what do I need to do? And so about every 3 sessions, I meet the parents after in the parking lot. You can't meet inside anymore because typically I would, but I meet them in the parking lot and I just talk about this kind of stuff, mentor stuff. Is it, for example, I had a mother last week asking me about agents. Is it important to get your kid an agent? And what I always tell those people is, like, there's no such thing as a dumb question, because if you're wondering that, then there's probably everybody else that's wondering the same thing.
Oh, for sure.
So at 13, do you get your kid an agent? Well, the answer is no, simply because it's just a distraction, and kids at that age can't have too many distractions.
No.
Like, they have their sports and then they have school. And then, in their minds too, they've got girls, they've got buddies, they've got video games, so you add into that whole thing, an agent who's, feeding them with talking about prospects, tournaments, and combines, and, OHL teams coming out. Like, they just can't process that.
No.
So what I always, what I told this mother and what I've told all the parents is just let the kids play. Like, be supportive. Obviously, these, if they're doing extra stuff with me as far as development, they're giving them the tools. But just be supportive. Like, that's the biggest thing with young kids that I find anymore, is give them those tools, but just be there for them. They don't need to go out and play and then get in the car and get their ass reamed about how they played.
Like we did.
Yeah, that's not what they did. That's not what they need, but one thing that I do provide that I know isn't as common anymore is, if I see something on the ice that I don't like, I'm quick to correct it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not out there to be a cheerleader. I'm out there to improve your kids.
Yeah.
So one thing that, I talk to all my groups about continuously is, like, the dicking around, like, body checking and slashing in the corner, waiting for a drill.
Yeah.
Because I get it, they're kids, but, nothing drives me more crazy than when I drop a drill in a board, and then typically for my groups, because I'm still capable of doing it, I'll show them
how to do it.
And then when I have, 3 kids go through and then the 4th kid absolutely butchers the drill that now I've done and 3 other kids have done properly, that 4th kid obviously is not listening or he's not paying attention.
Yeah.
So I only have these kids for 50 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm out here trying to give you as much as I possibly can, as much as I know. I didn't have this when I was growing up.
No.
I didn't have the ability to go on the ice with somebody that has experienced what I have. So just give me your attention.
It's an hour out of your day.
Exactly.
Once a week.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like I said, I love these kids. These kids that I work with, they're all fantastic. But those are the things, like, if I see something, most coaches nowadays, that's just kind of how life is. You just kind of got to let it go.
Yeah.
But when when your parents are paying their hard-earned money to have you come out with me, and then, you know, those parents aren't seeing the thing is right now too is parents can't be in the arena. So basically they just have to take my word for the sessions are going great.
Yeah.
The only way they're ever going to know if these sessions are going great is A, if the kids are going to say good things about it, and B, if they see improvements maybe down the road.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't ever want a kid coming out and saying that he wasn't enjoying it. I know all my kids enjoy it,
Mm-hmm.
but I make sure that for that 50 minutes they're like laser focused and they're ready to work and yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of good luck with it, but I understand down the road and luckily to this point I haven't any parents that are upset about the way that I coach or you know, just the accountability, I guess you could say, in my practices. But you know, I'm sure that I will at some point, you know, but for the most part, it's been well received. I'm not out there yelling at the kids, but if I do see something, I'm super controlled. I'll stop the practice. We'll start it again.
Yeah.
And I tell kids, like, you know, if I have a drill and you try and do it as fast as you can and you fall, great. That's awesome. Because a lot of what I'm teaching is movements or things that they're probably not comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're falling, it's showing me that you're willing to try something different.
Yeah, you're not worried about looking stupid.
No, and then I don't, like I said, I don't care if you fall 20 times.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're learning, each time you fall, you're learning a little bit more about, you know, your edges or the way your body works. So falling for me is awesome.
Yeah.
And I tell the kids that. But I also have drills where they're what I call mindless, like turn your mind off and just
go
move your legs.
Yeah.
And in drills like that, if you're falling, it's probably because it's a lack of attention. You know, you're just not wanting to pay attention. So that's an area where maybe I'll stop and practice and we'll start it over again. But like I said, it's been a blast. I've really enjoyed it. It's you know, something that I can see continuing. And, you know, fingers crossed here I do get a job in policing. I'm, you know, working hard at that, as I said, but it's something for me that I plan on continuing
in the free time that when you're not working kind of thing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and like you had said that we really didn't have that. Like I had a skating coach I went to because, you know, I don't know whether you did, but went to Larry Gazdick's skating school, and you get that leg kick when you're skating because that's how he did it, you know, just monkey see, monkey do kind of thing, and went to the skating school, and it was the biggest eye-opener for me because parents signed me up and said, you know, this trainer, and that's all they said was this trainer, you know, taught Zdeno Chara how to skate. Mm-hmm. You know, he's 7 feet tall, legs just as long as, you know, most people's entire bodies, and he couldn't skate, and this trainer, and that's all they kept saying, this trainer taught him how to skate properly. Yeah. They'll walk out, and it's a woman. Yeah. In hockey skates. Yeah. And I went, what? Like, this is a joke. Like, even some of the guys, same thing you said with your skating or with your school with, you know, they're not paying attention and they're kind of fucking around. And all of a sudden, like, she was attractive for her age and, you know, teenage boys and, you know, into young adults. Like, there was a couple guys that were in the A that got sent there by their team to skate better. Yeah. And she said, all right, let's go. I'm going to start at the hash marks. You start at the goal line. I'm skating backwards. You skate forwards. If you can beat me to the other end, you can give me a kiss. Not one of us fucking caught her. No. And it was like the first day, first couple of sessions, because everybody was screwing around. She's like, all right, well, I'm going to prove it to you. Yeah. And, you know, I get you're not going to say to the 13-year-old boys that are screwing around, you know, you can catch me, you can kiss me, because it's not going to do anything. But, you know, like it's that sort of thing where you need your eyes opened that it's not just, oh, it's just another skating school. Oh, it's just another hockey school. Like, you know, you and I both probably growing up went through mindless amounts of them. Oh, yeah. And, you know, some you picked up some good stuff, some you picked up some bad stuff. But when us as kids, you don't think about it. No. It's, oh, well, you know, I'm in this school. You know, I wish I was out with my friends. Yeah. And, you know, like, as you said, with the kids nowadays, like, picking up as quick as they have, there's no off time anymore. No, it's not like it used to be. Like, no. I have that talk with some of my, you know, parents, even at the younger ages, like they'll ask, you know, what can I do? What more can we do to help my son? Well, and
I'm in the business of development, so like I would love to have parents come to me and skate with me 6 times a week. Yeah, it'd be great for me as far as the financial aspect of it, but A, it's going to be a fortune for you, and B, I mean, your kid's going to get sick of hockey. And I say that to a lot of parents. Like, one thing that my dad did growing up that I, was so fortunate, to have was when hockey was over, like my shit normally went up in the garage.
Yep.
And I brought out my rollerblades and I played roller hockey, or I played soccer, or I played baseball. Like, so now, because you have to be on the ice so much, and parents are so worried about their kids getting behind, so many people are just creating hockey players. Like, these kids anymore, they're not athletic.
No.
Like, when we were growing up, you played every sport. And
Yep.
I can confidently say, like, my group of friends that I grew up with in Strathroy, like, I went on to play pro. My best buddy, Pat McNeil, went on, played pro for a long time, still playing. Max Campbell went on college scholarship, drafted by the Rangers, played pro. Jeremy Claver, scholarship. Tyler Carroll, OHL. Like, that was my group of friends. And it didn't matter if we were, like, playing hockey or playing soccer or, I remember one time where me and Max Campbell threw down at Caradoc Sands golf course. We were
really
fighting over golf. Like, legit. But that was something that we, as a friend group, we had. We were so competitive in everything we did that we challenged each other. And I'll tell parents, like, make your kid an athlete, because if you make your kid an athlete, he's going to be a better hockey player. Maybe not at 9 years old, but I promise down the line it's all going to come back. And but as I said, it is so much different now. Like, when you're talking about your skating coach too, like my skating coach, so basically up until I played in the OHL, my mom was a really good hockey player too, and I learned to skate just through my parents. I didn't do hockey schools or skating schools or anything. My parents just, gave me all the tools. We had backyard rinks every year, and I'd stay on it all through the night. But when I got to the OHL, one of our owners on my Guelph Storm team, her name was Barb Underhill.
Okay.
Barb is the skating coach for the Leafs. She's worked with the Rangers, the Lightning. She's a gold medalist figure skater, figure skater. She's 4'8", probably. Yep. She's the best skater I've ever seen in my life. Like, she got out for, like, it's the same thing. You're in the OHL, you're this, you're trying to be all cool, and she owns the team, so there's instant respect there. But then you see her get on the ice, and she's flying, and she's not digging into the ice, and
it's effortless.
You're like, okay, I want to know everything about what you're doing, and I want to learn about it. And that's kind of, for me, what really sparked that interest in skating, for sure, is learning from Barb. Like, she taught me so much in my 2 years that I was working with her that, and I mean, there's a reason she's like the best skating coach in the world. She's still doing it with NHL teams to this day. And, no, it's, like I said, Joey, it's been awesome to be home. It's been awesome to, kind of dig into the community a little bit. As I said, it's been a long time. I mean, I haven't seen Halloween in Canada and, since I played in the OHL. So, 14 years ago. Haven't seen Christmas in Canada in the last 10 because we don't get Christmas off, like, to come home when I'm playing in Europe. So I haven't been home for Christmas. I haven't, I haven't had these experiences. My kids don't know. Like, my kids were going bananas on Halloween. They never knew. With the North American group we'd have over in Europe, like, we'd try and do something, but it's like, okay, well, we're all living in an apartment, so it's like you go up and knock on an apartment door, and that's kind of it. But like, here, like, every house has got Halloween candy and
the decorations.
The decorations. Get to walk around the neighborhood. There's, like, 150 people out on the roads. Like, my kids were just like, they could not believe it. So it's kind of cool to see like the glow in their eye when, you know, people are putting up Christmas lights now, and you know, the snow last week, and we're supposed to get dumped on again tomorrow. So I'm sure they're going to be up at 6 a.m.
trying to get
make
you
snowman,
dragging you out to take you to a hill or whatever.
No, exactly. So that part's been awesome about being home. I really enjoyed that.
Well, no, and I was thinking about it today before you showed up, and I'm going, I don't think I've seen you since you played in the O.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
It's been a really long time.
Because, you know, Mandy was saying, you know, like, well, you know, I'm like, he's my cousin. Like, we're not first cousins. Like, it's not like we see each other every family reunion and stuff like that. But, you know, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking back and going, all right, let's go on Wikipedia just for a quick second here. It's 6'1". I don't ever remember him being 6'1".
No, I don't think you probably don't remember me being this side. You might remember the 5'7", 140 kid. But,
then it's...
Yeah.
And that's another thing, too, when it comes to, you know, kids looking to get into the professional ranks or even the junior ranks. Like, you know, I played in Mount Bridges and, you know, it was all fairly local, like still an hour drive and stuff like that. But, you know, those kids that sit there and go, well, I want to be an NHL player. The amount of travel, the amount of time away from family that, you know, I know a lot of guys, even when I went up to the St. Mike's training camp, that they were losing their mind. Like, that's the first time they were away from their parents, the first time away from their friends. Like, at the time I had a girlfriend, and in all honesty, that was part of the reason why I came back. You know, obviously didn't work out because, you know, Mandy and I are together now, but it's those little things that you take for granted growing up, and, you know, your parents are always there and stuff like that. It's having you on and, you know, you explaining, you know, like, your kids and you haven't seen Halloween for 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, like, a lot of people don't see that side of things just because they see, you know, the NHLers on TV.
Yeah.
And that's all they want. They don't realize the sacrifice that you have to make.
And the work, I mean, I've had countless people over the years, you know, that don't understand athletics. And they'll be like, you know, what do you do for a living? Well, I play hockey. Okay, I play hockey in Europe, I'll say to them.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, okay, but, like, you know, what do you do to make money? Or what's your real job?
Yeah.
But people, as you said, they see the NHL. So they think that, you know, if you're not in the NHL, you're not making money. You're not, but it doesn't matter if you're in the NHL or in Europe. I mean, hockey is a year-round sport. Like, when I'm not playing a season, like, my summers are packed. Like, I go to the gym every morning at like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. I go an hour and a half workout with my trainer in London. Typically after that, I'll go and, you know, have a skate or something. So, you know, from 7:30 in the morning till 1 o'clock, like, it's work. Like, you're working.
Yeah.
And that's every single day. And that doesn't matter if, you know, you'll have your weekends off, but it's a job. It really is. And it takes a lot of work. And that's one thing too that I'll talk to my kids about that I have, you know, growing up that are in this bantam age. I'm like, listen, you boys need to learn to make some sacrifices now. Like, growing up, I missed countless birthday parties. I missed countless parties. I missed graduations. I missed dances. I missed so much. I miss so many things that I, you know, look back and I'm like, yeah, shit, like, I missed that stuff. But the fact of the matter is, I was so stuck on being a hockey player. That's what I wanted my whole life. And I got a lot of buddies that went to all that stuff. And they wanted to be hockey players too. And they were probably a lot better than I was at that time.
Yeah.
And now my buddies that are, you know, that didn't make the sacrifices I made are, you know, they're in construction or they're plumbers or, well, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But the fact of the matter is, I missed all that stuff. I ended up, you know, achieving what I've always wanted to do my whole life. They, you know, they came up short, but at the end of the day, you know, we're all back in Strathroy being buddies at the end of the day.
Oh yeah.
You know, we're still friends. We're still tight. But I'll say to my groups that I have, I mean, this isn't something that you can just, like, you know, snap your fingers and it's going to happen. Like, it takes, it really does. It takes so much, and it's not just from you. It's from your family. It's from your siblings. Like,
that's a whole support system that you have.
You have to have a big support system. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and that's the same thing with, I've read a couple of different things that's, dreams aren't free.
Mm-hmm.
You want to turn them into a reality. There are sacrifices. There are, things that you want to do. You want to fuck off with your friends.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were talking earlier with video games, like before this podcast, even it was get done work for the week, entire day, just mind off, turn on the PlayStation, hockey, basketball games, Call of Duty, whatever it was. But now with this, it's, research, finding guests, and this has become, like, it's not work. It's a passion for me.
Yeah.
And giving people the tools that I never had growing up to make that decision, whether it's hockey with you or some of the other podcasts I've had where, it's real great to say, I want to do this. Well, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have to do?
Yeah.
What research do you have to put in? What skill set do you need?
Yeah.
On and on and on down the list. And, whereas I wasn't smart enough, educationally to become a teacher, I'm almost trying to do this to help them out in, a guidance counselor teacher kind of way where there's how many thousands of kids every year that want to play hockey.
Yeah.
And, even whether it's them choosing that dream or their parents, because there's a lot of that too, where, I coached for a little bit after my junior days on my sister's team. And, a couple of times we went over and were coaching with boys teams because we were splitting the ice, and you could just see some kids going, I just want to play basketball.
Yeah.
I just want to play soccer.
Yeah.
And you hear that those are the parents up in the stands just losing their mind because he's didn't cross over properly, or, the wrist shot was terrible.
Yeah.
And it's, sometimes kids just have to be kids.
Oh, 100%.
But at the same time too, if they find something they're passionate in, whether it is hockey or soccer or roller hockey or anything else, is you have to allow them to grow. And as you were saying with talking to some of the parents, them being athletic was, same thing with me. I was on the volleyball team. I'm 6'4", and everybody goes, "Oh, you play basketball?" I fucking suck at basketball.
Yeah.
But I always tried. It was, played soccer, played baseball, played hockey, and all those different sports, the hand-eye coordination from baseball, people don't think about it, but, you being a forward, me taking a slap shot from the point, if you didn't play baseball, you might not knock that out of the air.
Yeah.
Soccer, the endurance that you put in, football, if you played football and hockey, like, you taking a smack from a guy running at you that's 250, that's going to stop you from, like, as we said with Junior D, where, we're in the corner and you're 140 pounds, I'm 190.
Yeah.
You can take that welt and keep going, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So, but I do want to.
No, it's what I was going to add there. It's there's definitely like there's so much that you have to give up as far as and it's not just hockey. I mean, it's anything. And I liked what you said there in that, but I mean, it doesn't matter, where you're from or what you want to do. I mean, if you put the work in, then you're going to have a chance.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. Like, I remember one specific time when I was a young kid, I was probably like 10 or 11, and I'm, super competitive kid. And this dad picked me and his son up from hockey practice, or a hockey game, and I was kind of bummed out. And he's like, "Well, what's wrong?" And I was like, "Well, we lost. Like, we played terrible. We lost."
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Oh, Brandon, you know what?" He's like, "Don't be so hard on yourself." He's like, "You're from Mount Bridges. Nobody ever makes it from Mount Bridges." That's what he told me. So my whole life, like, I would use, those words, like, "You don't think I'm going to make it? I'll prove you wrong." Sort of thing. But it's times have definitely changed. I mean, with how, things were when we were kids and now, and just the tools that kids have now to improve at whatever they want to improve in. But I think there's a lot more ways now for kids also to get in trouble. So you have to, the biggest thing that I've found with these kids is you have to keep them interested all the time. And that's one thing that, took a little bit of an adjustment for me. When you go from pro, where it's like you go on a practice, and pro, everyone's like laser focused on what's going on, who's doing what in certain drills. And then you go out with a group of kids and, if they have to stand in line for 10 seconds, they're fighting each other. Yeah. So you have to be creative in ways like that to keep their mind kind of busy. But, as I said, this whole experience for me has been awesome. being home's been awesome. Seeing people like you who I
Yeah.
haven't seen in a long time has been great. But no, I mean, this is a great avenue for you too. I know
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big podcast listener, so these are a lot of people think about doing podcasts, but as you said, it's a lot of work that goes into it.
Yeah.
And for you to be doing this for people is awesome.
Oh, thanks for that. It's, as I said, like I've listened to Rogan since episode 300 and getting into other ones, and it's always, everybody's got an opinion until you put a mic in their face.
Mm-hmm.
And, and you probably had it playing hockey, whether it was in the O or in North America or then over in Europe or with interviews.
Yeah.
It's a muscle that you have to develop. It's something that's not easy to do. The first couple ones, if you go back and listen to them, I sound like absolute shit. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to say it, but it is work. And when it comes to, hockey or podcasting or any job really, it's the failures that cause you to get better.
Yeah.
Like you were saying with the dad that made the comment about Mount Bridges is, first off, he wasn't informed. Jason Williams played in Bridges.
Yeah, he did.
Cody McCormick is
Yeah,
from
he
Mount
did.
Bridges.
He did,
there are lots of guys that have become successful out of that small town.
Yeah.
But you being hard on yourself when you lost, we sucked, we lost. Well, you're not going to learn anything if you win all the time.
Yeah, no, that's the unfortunate part you see with raising kids now. It's
Mhm.
like, the soccer where it's like there's no score kept, and the participation ribbons and stuff like that. I mean, I want my kids to fail.
Yeah.
I want my kids to learn. I want my kids to learn what it means to work hard. I want my kids to understand the meaning of $1.
Mm-hmm.
These are all experiences that I had to go through.
Yep.
And, it's made me so much more mature than most of my, friends.
Mm-hmm.
At a young age, at least.
Yeah.
Now I'm 32 years old, so I'm...
Everybody's kind of at the same level, yeah.
But, at a young age, I mean, those are lessons that I had to learn. If I didn't go to school, I didn't go to hockey. Well, hockey was my life. I didn't want to miss hockey, so... skip a class to be with my buddies and sit in the cafeteria or go to practice that night. Well, I was going to go to class so I could go to practice.
Yep, exactly.
But, I understand that things have changed quite a bit in regards to that, but that's how I'm going to raise my kids.
Oh yeah, for sure. And even still with that, it's real difficult now as opposed to when we were growing up where, cost of living's gone up so much more now than it did, 20 years ago. And, both parents got to work, in certain situations, the oldest sibling's essentially the babysitter.
Yeah.
And, it's a lot easier to sit that kid in front of the TV,
Yeah.
even though they called in, we had to call in sick for them in school for the day, but yet they're still on their tablet, they're still on their Switch, they're still on the PlayStation, the Xbox, whatever. But, at the same time, too, I was the same as you. I'm sick.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got a game tonight, right? Yeah. Well, if you're sick from school, I'm going to have to also call the coach to say that we're not going to be... Oh, I think I'm going to go to school.
Yeah,
it's
you're
funny.
feeling better instantly.
Yeah, exactly.
No, exactly.
But actually, I want to thank you for coming on because, even the European side of things was really informative for me because, as I said, I had that option and I just thought it was a throwaway kind of idea. So there's probably lots of kids and, even lots of teenagers or even young adults that still have that option that once the coronavirus and the COVID shit's done, that they might have that option. So, and it was BB Hockey, you said?
Yeah, BB Hockey is my Instagram page. BB Hockey Training is the website. But, check it out. It's a passion of mine. It's been a lot of fun. And, thanks again for having me. I know... there's endless opportunities in hockey.
Mm-hmm.
And, one thing I always tell people is I didn't make NHL money. I gave up that dream of playing in the NHL when I chose to go over to Europe. I did really well for myself over there and supported my family and everything else. But the biggest thing that I was able to gain through all of this is life experience.
Mm-hmm.
And the experiences that I've, given, my wife and the places I've been able to take my kids and the countries and the trips and the places they lived and, my oldest daughter speaks German, and to go to school in these places, like I would have never been given these opportunities, if I would have just given up and gone to school.
Yep.
And I feel like I'm so much better off having those life experience than, a degree, for example. And, I didn't go to post-secondary school. I chose the hockey route. But hockey's given me so much as far as those life experiences that, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Well, that's a perfect note as any to kind of leave some people with some inspiring thought process. So I'd like to thank Brandon again for coming on, and everybody stay safe, stay opinionated. Thanks.